Hello and welcome to the all-new Marvel Roundup, the Southgate Media Group's guide to the Marvel Comics of the week. As always, I am Phil Parrish, and joining me is...
Charlie Esser!
Great to hear from you again, my friend.
Yeah, always is. Always is.
You're like, yes, it's great to speak to me every week.
I mean, it's always great to hear from you as well.
I know.
I know. Although, yes, it is great to hear from me. I am awesome. I am the professor.
On him.
Don't question my brilliance, Phil.
The ego, the living planet on this guy. All right. I will start us off this week with Nova number 3.
All right.
If you remember last issue, Sam and Rich were at Nowhere, and they got ambushed by... Who's this tiger guy? Titus and Death's Head.
Ooh. So, yes, from the old Marvel UK.
Mm-hmm. So they have them... They must have blasted them. They're down, and they're about to, I guess, kill them because they were hired to steal their helmets. But who comes to their rescue? Cosmo. Who uses his...
Cosmo the dog.
Yeah, he uses his mental powers on them just long enough for the Novas to get back up, and then Titus is he starts getting on Sam. He says, "How's your father? Still lost?" He says, maybe he just never cared enough to come back, so that gets Sam mad, so he starts attacking Titus. They're fighting, then Rich Rider jumps in, and that's when Death's Head says, "Okay, plan B," he says, "hand over your Nova helmets or everyone on Nowhere ceases to exist." And Rich is like, "Oh, big threat from a robot." He's like, "Also, was that a Canadian accent? How'd you even get that in space?" Because, Kiz always ends his question, his sentence with like a question. He's like, "Yes," or "Eh." So Death's Head says, "Give us the helmets or we're going to detonate these bombs we put all over Nowhere." He said, "There's unimaginable cosmic energy coursing through a celestial brain. What do you think will happen when we blow it up, eh?" So Rich tells Sam, "Hand over your helmets," but meanwhile Cosmo has them, linked telepathically, so he's like, we need to stall for some time. And Rich tells Sam, he's like, "I'll hold these two off, Sam. You have to go find the bombs." Or I don't know if there's like one big bomb. So at the last minute, they put their helmets back on. Rich attacks the Titus and Death's Head, and he tells Sam, "Go." And Sam finds the big bomb. And Rich tells him, "You have the Nova Force. You have to, it's energy. Reach out, hold it back." And he says, "I can't do this," but then it's when Rich shows up and he says, "I have your back." And he's helping him redirect the energy. And his hands are making funny shapes, and Rich's skin looks a little funky, so I'm assuming he's been infected by something from the Cancerverse. But they stop the bomb, and, then they go back for the drink they're supposed to have in the bar, and Rich is talking to Sam about this girl he likes in school, and he says, Sam's like, "What if she said, you're going to ask her out? What if she says no?" He says, "Then she says no, you go on with your life." And Rich is like, "Look, kid, I'm not a life expert. I'm not a cool genius Tony Stark guy, but I have been dead, and looking back, I wish I had talked to more girls."
Ooh, that's kind of dramatic foreshadowing.
Oh, it is.
Especially if he's got like a zombie virus.
Mm-hmm. But, it's also foreshadowing because he's like, "I'm back now. Not everyone gets that chance. So I'm going to live like hell." And then they show, I guess I don't know if Rich had a room on Nowhere, but there's someone going through one of his rooms somewhere. And it's a girl, Charlie, and guess who it is who's going to show up next issue?
Mantis?
Close. Guardians of the Galaxy's own Gamora.
Oh, she's a sweet kid.
Quiet little flower, I guess. But this was a good issue. I didn't know how the two Novas would mesh, but I'm having fun with this book so far. It's a big thumbs up.
Awesome. Okay, so let me go grab a book. Let's see. You know what? I'm gonna go with Gwenpool. We're gonna open up with Gwenpool. That seems like a good one. Okay. Gwenpool, always awesome, always delightful. She does her little recap on her recap page, which is fun because I have to imagine, because she can't see her own recap page, I have to imagine she is just doing that in the mirror every morning. Because we've seen her do that, where she starts monologuing from the recap page, and then when they cut to the thing, she's like, "Oh yeah," and they're like, "Why is she just standing there talking at no one?"
Nope.
And then we go to this guy somewhere above Europe, Johnny Quest, or some privileged blonde-haired billionaire child has had all of his servants murdered by Scarface Magoo. I'm sorry, Von Magoo, because he does say "acht" when he gets shot. And of course he does get shot because he's monologuing, and Gwenpool just shoots him. And makes the point, who needs martial arts training when all you have to do is hide till the bad guy starts to monologue? It's what I told the rest of the crew, but everyone wants to be a hero. And, of course, the guy's like, aren't you going to land the plane? And she's like, I don't know how to land a plane. And I wasn't paid to land a plane. I'm here to keep you safe. So she jumps out of the building, or jumps out of the plane with a parachute and the kid. The plane crashes into a mountain, and the kid is all sad. She makes it back to Ronnie's, and she's like, I know, the parents are mad because I blew the plane. And they say, no, they're pleased. You taught that awful boy a lesson in responsibility. He says, yeah, that's me, responsibility. And Ronnie makes a point. It is good to have you back working out of Big Ronnie's big list of freelance violence jobs. You have gotten much better since I first met you. And he says, yeah, well, if it's not MODOK or a secret Doombot or anyone who's actually important, it's easy. We catch up with Vinny, who's being interviewed about why he has half a Doombot face, but he is a superhero now, which is what he never wanted. Gwen keeps on jumping through jobs. Comes to a job in the greater Rochester area. Wanted. A bloodthirsty, unstoppable vampire threatens our town. Please stop him. Standard blah 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 rate, or they don't say, but we're gonna say million rate applies. And she decides to take that. Ronnie says that it seems like a death wish thing. She's like, okay. She's riding the train with a bandolier of garlic crosses, Stars of David, various other religious symbols, and wooden stakes. They asked to throw her off the train. She says, why? I don't have religious freedom in this country. And so they go back where she says, of course, I also have a backpack full of guns, but they didn't ask. She meets the nice guy of the town who has a sign on his building that says, what does it say? Oh, it was very cute, but it basically says, this notice is that no vampire is granted entrance to this house. This is legally enforced. It says vampires are explicitly not invited into this residence, even if the homeowner is hypnotized into saying otherwise. This sign has power of attorney in all vampire-related matters. And basically, the guy says, kill the vampire, nothing else. And he's like, well, why would I kill anything else? This is the town of Kill Dude. And she says, well, I did just make a joke about killing dudes. She says, I wonder how Cecil is doing. We flashed to Cecil at his parents' trailer, and his dad's going to shoot him with a shotgun because they're like, ghost. And it's like, Dad, it's me, Cecil. I got it. So we'll have to see how that comes back to. Gwenpool's in the bell tower when she sees a skeleton coming to the house. To the church, and goes in. She remembers that she was told not to kill anything except the vampire. Then she sees a zombie shambling in. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna investigate. And she goes in and she sees the zombies are all around the townsmen. She goes and starts slashing up the skeletons. And then she realizes that, oh, he's a necromancer. And, that he was just a nice guy who was living in this town trying to keep a low profile. Then one day, Hydra showed up and killed the entire town because they wanted his necromantic abilities. So he just brought everyone back, which is nice. And then, of course, the vampire shows up, except, the skeleton corrects him. No, it's not a vampire. It's a Damphir. Or sorry, it's a Damphir. So, and she's like, oh no, I know. A Damphir is a half vampire, and here there's only one of them, and you want me to stop him? You want me to stop Blade? And then, of course, Blade smashes in, starts kicking people, punching people. Gwenpool realizes she has no powers has no way to stop him, except she still tries to. Then she explains to Blade, these are all just normal, regular people. Not monsters at all. They're just nice people that the necromancer's been bringing back to life because he wanted his town to just remain normal and lovely. Oh, interesting thing there about people who want normalcy in the Marvel universe, who have a deep dark secret, which we'll get to in a minute because of course, her and Blade become friends, and she's like, you went and you stood up to protect people. There are very few people that will do that. That's a good quality. And they agree to become friends, and Blade gives her his contact information. And then Gwenpool says, it's weird, all these people here, but, didn't any of these people have kids? And, it's like, it's fine. Just takes a little bit of the old blood magic, and they'll be good as new. And then he goes and sees all the children of the town have been locked in the basement, and he just pulls their life force from them to bring all the dead people back to life. Oh, and then she, of course, calls Blade. Says, yeah, Blade, can you come back, please? The end. Next issue, we fight Arcade. So this is getting fun. Gwenpool is still awesome. You can't go wrong with her. She is a hard fighting, hard scrambling, hard rambling gal. And she knows the world is fictional, so she relies heavily on her Deus Ex Machina power. And as Bratrock will tell you, it works. Don't question it. So, big thumbs up for Gwenpool.
All right, then I guess I will go to my 2 X-Men books. I will start with All New X-Men number 18. Of course, it's a Inhumans vs. X-Men crossover. Or tie-in. So it starts, there's a battle between the Inhumans and X-Men in New Adelan. Young Cyclops is basically doesn't know what he's doing, where he's going. First he gets attacked by, I guess that's Inferno, and Inferno's about to take him down until he's saved by old Iceman. So then Cyclops keeps going, and he gets grabbed by Medusa, her hair, and she's like, time travel's a complicated thing. You are Scott Summers, you are Cyclops, but not yet quite the monster. She's like, here's your chance for self-defense, young Cyclops. Tell me something good. But then she gets taken down by Magneto. So Magneto's fighting Medusa, and then he tells Cyclops, Chowder, no, you're Scott Summers. Go do something constructive. But then after the battle, all the X-Men, I guess, regroup on Muir Island. And Scott's feeling weird because, he's like, everyone's looking at him like he's a ghost. But he's also like, most everyone here was like friends with the adult Scott. And he's like, he's been trying to get out from under the reputation of the old Cyclops, and he's like, it just feels like now he's following that path because, after the attack on New Adelan. And he's sitting there and he's talking to a young Angel, and he's saying, it just feels weird. it just feels like he's going down the same path as old Cyclops, and he's like, and then there's the thing with Magneto. He's like, when did the sort of a good guy Magneto happen exactly? He's like, but meanwhile the X-Men are all dead set on doing exactly what Cyclops did, destroying the Terrigen, the Inhumans. Who cares about the Inhumans? Ben Angel's like, I don't know. He's like, the way Hank tells it, the mutant race might be extinct if we don't do this. And Cyclops says, okay, what else is new? He says, and Angel's like, this is different. And Cyclops says, how is this different? It's exactly the same. He's like, what if we're on the wrong side of history here? Since when is self-preservation our primary goal? We're supposed to be the friggin' X-Men, Warren. He says, we're supposed to be better than this. And then they see Magneto walk by and is staring at them. And Cyclops walks away, and he gets taken over by Mosaic. This is interesting. This is like my first.
Mosaic.
This is
waiting to hear about him.
Yeah, this is like my first exposure to him. But so Cyclops is in his head, and he sees all these memories flashing by, like it almost looks like giant TVs, and Mosaic, Mosaic says, this is your brain, and when Cyclops asks him who he is, he tells him he's Mosaic, and he says, I'm a body snatcher, I'm borrowing yours for a minute, and I guess he's controlling Cyclops to steal a Blackbird, and he says, kid, go check out some of your memories. He says, you do not want to be talking to me while I try to land this plane. So Cyclops walks away in his head, and he's like, oh, I'll just check out this giant Magneto helmet that seems to be sitting here. And Mosaic says, oh, that's just leftovers from the old mean dude I was in before you. I always pull chunks with me. And Mosaic says, yeah. He's like, that guy's fierce, booted me out quick. And Cyclops says, yeah, well, he's more or less the real-life boogeyman. And when he walks into the giant Magneto helmet, Cyclops is getting all these memories from Magneto, like when he was in a concentration camp, and that fun time when Magneto pulled the adamantium out of Wolverine, and a bunch of other memories. And then it gets closer to the present. He sees a conversation Magneto recently had with Emma Frost, and when she reveals to Magneto the whole thing about, how, she faked the whole thing with Cyclops' confrontation with Black Bolt and everything. And so young Cyclops is like, Black Bolt didn't kill Cyclops, the Mpox did, he was already dead. He's like, I didn't, Cyclops didn't do any of it. And he's like, I've been torturing myself. He's like, he's just like, all of it's Emma Frost's fault. He's like, she's responsible for every bad thing that's happened to me. What's worse, she knew what this would be like for me. She didn't reach out and try to explain. She didn't care. So, I guess Mosaic gets what he wants because he leaves Scott's head, but he says, the body's all yours, I'm out, but it takes about 12 hours for you to wake back up in it. Sorry, kid. So Cyclops is thinking, okay, I have 12 hours. He's like, and then I'm coming for you. He's like, then the truth and the concussive optic blast are coming for you, Emma Frost. Are coming to set you free. Dun, dun, dun.
There you go. Dun, dun, dun. So that was cool. Yeah, like I said, I really not gotten the chance to really go into Mosaic. I've wanted to. I mean, Marvel, buries us in books, and then, they wonder why all these great new books they're creating aren't getting read. It's because you keep on overstuffing us with the mainstays,
Yeah.
We want to read those, but not all of us are millionaire Tony Starks.
But yeah,
he seems like he's a pretty awesome power set.
Oh yeah, he just basically looks like he's standing in a room, with a room full of TV screens, but each one's like one of your memories. And yeah, I guess after he leaves, you were out for 12 hours. That's a pretty, all you have to do is jump into somebody's head and jump out, and you knock them out for 12 hours.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, actually. It's a pretty cool superpower.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting in that, too, is just like Cyclops suddenly realizing that Emma Frost is a sociopathic monster. I guess young Cyclops had never faced her yet.
No, but even still, I'm like...
Because let's not forget, she's a horrible sociopathic monster.
Yeah. But also, I'm just like, he's blaming her for every bad thing old Cyclops did. I'm like, okay, the whole thing with Black Bolt and the Terrigen thing, she can get the blame for that. But he was pulling some crap even before that, though.
Well, yeah, but the whole Cyclops Phoenix story, the AVX story, that's not why people are. I mean, that's one of the things people are mad about. But the fact of the matter is, in that he always had that out of the Dark Phoenix. That he was a Phoenix, and the Phoenix, drives a little bit batty. So I feel for him there, and for what it's worth, which is something we're going to get to in Super Connectivity. Sometimes you just want to believe in heroes against all odds. It's important. Okay.
But yeah, that was a thumbs up. So I guess I'll go to Old Man Logan number 17.
Okay.
If you remember last issue, it seemed like he was jumping back and forth between our present, where he was helping Puck on the space station, that old space station, and then he seemed like he was flashing forward to the Badlands. So he in the supposed future, he's in the Badlands. I guess he's up by Niagara Falls. He gets jumped by some gang, I guess, who throws him over a cliff. I don't know if it's the actual falls, but because it looks like they throw him over at night. He wakes up, it's like daylight.
Is there water at the falls?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Badland.
Yeah, so he pulls himself out of the water, and then he wakes up in the present. He's in a space shuttle, because remember, he got sucked out into space last issue, but there's Puck, and he's asking Puck, what happened, and he's like, oh, your healing factor isn't what it used to be, but it kept you alive in space long enough for me to, pull you into this shuttle. And he says, how long was I out? He's like, 15 hours. He's like, 15 hours? What have you been doing? He's like circling the space station. He's like, I'm going back in there without you. So they come up with this complicated plan about they're going to go back in, kill all the brood, and save Sasquatch and Abigail Brand. But that's when they get a distress call, and Puck says it's not coming from one of them. There must be someone else alive in there. So they dock with the space station, and they're about to go back in. And that's when Logan flashes back to the wastelands, and he sees, well, here's Puck again. And, he's like, the warlord of the wastelands. And Logan's like, what happened? He's like, Puck. He's like, Alpha Flight all died in Ottawa when the villain uprising hit. It's like, how are you here? He's like, did Kang bring you here? And that's when Kang appears, and Logan says, where's the baby Kang? Because remember, he's looking for Bruce Banner's grandson. And that's when Kang says, you're asking the wrong questions, Logan. Where are you? And he flashes back to the present, and him and Puck are just killing brood left and right. And I guess they get further into the station. Logan flashes back to the wastelands, and he asks Kang, what have you done? And Kang says, I took the baby, but you must understand, I brought him here to stop it. Logan's like, stop it, what are you talking about? And look, Kang says, saw the future, saw what would be, brought the baby here to stop the warlord from rising up. And he says, one true warlord will rise up, he will rule the wastelands. And that's when Logan says, who did this? Who has the baby? And Kang says, you don't understand. Time is twisted here. It has already happened. Banner's grandchild is the warlord. And that's when this Hulk. Yeah, that's when this Hulk-like figure shows up. It looks like he's wearing an American flag for a scarf. He's got I don't know if that's supposed to be Ares helmet. But yeah, he's towering over Logan. I mean, and that's when he grabbed Banner's grandchild. I don't know if they ever give you his name. He grabs Logan and he's smashing him into the ground. And that's when...
Banner's grandchild's name is David.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's baby David Banner. He shows up again. He actually... Well, before this, he was in before Hickman's Fantastic Four, the I forget who did that. I think it was actually Miller when Millar was doing the Fantastic Four. He had Banner's grandson be with the group that travels back from the past or from the future to go to the past. The few humans who were remaining alive, after the events of Old Man Logan, when Logan deposed the bad guys. But this is all a different timeline now. So yes.
Well, yeah, but then so David smashing him, and that's when this supposed Puck from the Wastelands is saying this has not happened, this is not real, and Logan says, then what is? And he says, we did go back to the space station, but we found another ship from X-Haven. They came to help you. She came to help you, and now she is doing this to you. And Logan says, she who? And that's when Logan says, Jean, or he says Jeannie, but and there's Jean Grey floating there. Bum, bum, bum.
Teenage Jean Grey?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on here there, but it looks like she might be being controlled. I don't know, but yeah, it's getting interesting. It's a thumbs up for me.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and that brings me to my next book. We did my Gwenpool. Let's do Champions with Gwenpians. No recap page on this one. We're opening up with the Daly County Mosque on fire. And we see the sheriff is telling the firemen not to go in because it could be dangerous. And then, of course, out bursts the champions, Nova, Ms. Marvel, Cyclops, and the totally awesome Hulk, carrying various innocent people out of the mosque that were going to die in the fire. We find out that the sheriff is like an evil racist guy, doesn't like Inhumans, mutants, or foreigners. Which is kind of sad because, usually when you have that new threat, we start to find the Brotherhood of Humanity. And we could say, yes, you may be from the Middle East, but, at least you ain't a mutant or an Inhuman. And so we can be brothers and hate them. And that's usually what brings people together. That's how the Irish got to be white. Because basically, there were other people we could hate so much more. We didn't have to hate the Irish or the Germans or the Italians so much anymore. Modern racism. It's funny. Anyway, Viv basically says she found a part of the bomb, and it's the part serial numbers seem to imply that it was recently confiscated by the police department. Then we see that we see Gwenpool in the background as they're talking to the bad guys. She's planting bombs. Then as everyone's flying off, she jumps into Nova's arms and says, bombs, bombs, bombs away. Says, and all the cop cars blows up. He says, why did you do that? Do what? Basically, the champions all fly off because they can. And Gwenpool introduces herself to the rest of the team, says, I'm a champion too. You said anyone who wanted to join could be a champion. See, I got the C on my chest and everything. Basically she's trying to explain to them that, on the Earth I came from, you're all comic book characters. I know how your stories go. Bad cops always turn out to be supervillains or controlled by supervillains or supervillains in training. And Ms. Marvel basically is trying to explain to her, like, no, sometimes people are evil just because they're evil. Although then Viv does say, but she is right. There is something in the air. And then we've cut away from that scene for some reason. And we go to the North Star LGBTQ. Oh, it's named after North Star. North Star LGBTQ Center, where basically people have written, left a note on the door telling them, with Sheriff Stoddard here, you folks had better be getting gone. This guy really has a lot of hate. I mean, he is, you name the group, he hates them, Mm-hmm. Which is pretty impressive. I got to be honest. Like I said, in a world with mutants and Inhumans and just regular old radioactive people, to have time for that not only skin color and religious hatred, but also sexual preference hatred. This guy, he's working overtime. And which is why, quite frankly, I think he might be Hydra. Because that kind of unfocused hate, that seems very Hydra-y. But, we're going to have to see what happens. Anyway, they bust up some kids who are spray painting on, I don't know if it's someone's house or something, but basically, making writing racial slurs on the sides of the building when trying to do swastikas, and the Hulk, of course, crushes all their paint cans. And Gwen is basically gonna, go punch some Nazis. And everyone's like, hey, come on, we don't want to meet violence with violence. And then she's like, this is what we do. We fight evil, don't we? So let's fight. And then she grabs one of them, trying to make him change because she's certain he's a Skrull. And, Viv basically says it's not a Skrull. She's really having a hard time fitting in. Although what it'll give you, which is kind of interesting, is she is totally on the team. She is not. They are not kicking her out. Which is kind of fascinating because she has no powers. She has, she has not proven her value as yet. But she's got a costume. She says she's a champion. They're letting her hang around. But again, Deus Ex Machina power, the greatest power there is. They find out there is the one good cop, the deputy. He says, I know, but, I can't come out against him because he'll destroy my career. And the kids are all sitting on top of the building, trying to figure out what to do next. The sheriff comes in and says, what are those kids doing on top of the building? Got to arrest them, blah, blah, blah. Basically oversteps his authority in that thing. Which I don't think that's meant to be an implication of someone. Then they go out. We see that they're all hanging out. Gwenpool is eating a hot dog. And, basically the deputy comes out and gives a whole speech explaining that because he has been moved to action, that basically, explaining that the sheriff did do this horrible, evil thing. And they realize that the crowd's about to riot, so they're going to go down and do riot control. And he says, "Totally awesome, Hulk smash!" He says, and Nova says, "No punching down. Remember, I'll do it." And Ms. Marvel says, "Listen, Gwen Dork. Sometimes, as we are sorely learning, problems are complex. Sometimes there's just not anything to hit." And she goes, "Do you understand?" Showing Kilgrave, Sublime, Mesmero. Says, Ms. Marvel says, "I can't even." Says, "Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe she'll find Mesmero. Let's get down there before the powder keg crowd blows and act like champions." Ba-ba-ba. Let's see if she finds Kilgrave before the end of this. It was a really good book. And honestly, what I loved most about it is having as Gwenpool as our little guest star, we get to see this limitation in her powers, which is this idea that, for a nerd, she's got to realize that sometimes these stories are going to tell a very special episode, and that story might be a little deeper than just it's all Hydra. Of course, she, we don't know if she knows about Hydra Cap yet. We're gonna have to find. I mean, technically, she shouldn't because she came to this universe before then. But we have to remember that now that she's in this universe, she's subject to sliding time as well. Mm-hmm. So she may actually still be having her life, her memories altered to remember the past. Bum, bum, bum. And so at some point she may go, "Oh my goodness, now I remember Cap is Hydra," which would be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's just like, oh, yes. And then the Ultimates, they mentioned this thing about the, things being pulled forward in time. I must be being pulled forward in time, and my memories are altering to remember more recent canon. Oh, please do that, Marvel. Please, please, please. I'm begging you. Do that for me. Do that for me. Always have her be in canon. Big thumbs up for the Gwenpians, also known as Champions number 5. And hey, to their credit, Totally Awesome Hulk has not gone evil and betrayed them all yet. Yet. It's happening, man. Hulk's the one that's got to be reminded not to punch down. He is gonna kill someone. You watch. Oh, he's gonna go rogue, man. Especially if Viv starts kissing Miles Morales again. Although now he's kissing Gwenpool, so who knows? Maybe they'll join together to be hating on everybody for kissing each other and not them. We will see.
All right. Well, then I'm going to jump to my pick of the week because I think there's part of.
Actually, I'm sorry. Wait, because I'm thinking about it. That was my pick of the week. It really was, and and I just kind of realized, I never know my pick of the week until just that moment, and it's like, you know what? This really was my pick of the week. This was really a pretty awesome book on a lot of levels. It fired on a lot of cylinders, had a lot of depth to it. And, the whole time you're kind of going along with Gwenpool is like, when are we going to find this girl? When are we going to prove Gwenpool right? And to have her not be proven right, kind of like, oh, yeah. So, that was my pick of the week. Gwenpians number 5. Sorry about that. All
right. That's okay. Then I'll go to my pick of the week, and a part of this I think you're going to be interested in. Spider-Man 2099 number 20.
Yay!
Opens up with Miguel talking on the phone with his assistants. They're coming back after last issue, and he gets in the elevator. He's going downstairs, I guess, but he gets a phone call. It's from Dr. Evans, Tempest's doctor. He says, I've been trying to get a hold of you. And Miguel's like, has there been a change in Tempest's condition? He says, yes. He says, she's awake. Her brain is fully functional. He's like, the baby is in good shape. And Miguel's like, what? The baby? He's like, holy shock, the baby? Because she hadn't told him yet. He's like, yes, the pregnancy was not damaged by the explosion. However, the spinal injury she sustained has paralyzed her from the waist down. And he's like, oh my God. And the doctor says, this gentleman has shown up and is trying to convince her to go with him. And he says, what gentleman? And the doctor says, he says his name is Mr. Stone. And he says, Tiberius Stone? And the doctor says, no, I believe he said his name is Tyler Stone. So now Miguel's freaking it. Yeah, Miguel's freaking out. His girlfriend's pregnant. His father from the for the future is here, and he's like, how's all any of this happening? So, and he tells Lila, he's like, reverse the elevator, take me to the roof, and drop my clothing hologram. So, because remember he has like boot jets in his suit now, so he takes off from the roof. And he's like, how is my father here? And why would he be dealing with Tempest? And he says, obviously, because she's my girlfriend, but how in the hell is he here? Did he come through my time portal? He's like, no, he must have gotten here some other way, and Tempest is pregnant. He's like, he's like, why didn't she tell me? But maybe she was starting to tell me when the explosion hit, and because she was going to whisper something to him. He says, I've got to get to her, tell her I love her, and maybe propose marriage, and kill my father. He's like, but first, the love stuff. So then at the hospital, the doctor's trying to talk Tempest out of leaving with Tyler, and she's saying, she's like, because the doctor's saying Miguel's on his way, and she says, is he bringing me a new pair of legs? And the doctor says no. She says, then send Mr. Stone in. And out in the waiting room, the nurse tells Tyler he can come in, and she says, but I didn't know anyone was going to be accompanying you because there's a shadowy figure with him, Charlie. And he says, it's all right, M. Actually, you're better served waiting outside. We have reports of a certain individual is on his way, someone I suspect you're anxious to encounter.
Who's the shadowy figure?
Oh,
we don't know?
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay.
But Tyler goes in to talk to Tempest, and he says, we were cut short last time. And she says, I want to know who you really are. And he says, okay, but first, what do you know about Mike? Really know? And she says, I know he hates it when people call him Mike. She's like, what are you referring to? But then outside, Miguel's showing up. He's like, he says, I can't just go in there asking about Tyler. Priority 1 is checking on, Tempest and the baby. He's like, but maybe I shouldn't mention that I know she's pregnant. Maybe she wanted to tell me first. And that's when Lila is like, Miguel, and he's like, not now. And he's thinking, should I bring it up out of the blue or wait for her? And Lila keeps bugging him. He's like, what? And she says, duck. And he says, there's a duck? He's like, why should I care about? And she says, duck. And then all of a sudden, there's an ambulance flying at him, Charlie, and he jumps out of the way. And then he hears, you ready to dance, Spider-Man? And you know who threw the ambulance at him, Charlie? The new
Would that be our good friend? I'm sorry.
Who? No, who?
Oh, I was going to say, would that be our good friend Man Mountain Marco?
Yes, improved by Tyler Stone.
Oh wow, awesome, man! Marco gets an
Uh-huh.
upgrade.
Yeah,
He needed that so
Miguel's like,
badly.
yeah, because Miguel's like, what happened to him? He's like, after our last fight, he should be in a full body cast, but there's barely a scratch on him. So then back in the hospital, Tyler's talking to Tempest, and he says, he's like, are you aware of his extracurricular wall crawling activities? Like, I see you are. And he says, okay, good. He goes, Tempest, I'm his father. And she says, that's not possible. And he says, not possible because you know where he comes from, or more specifically, when he comes from. He says, Tempest, it's true. I've traveled through time and space to be with my son, but the fact is that he doesn't think much of me, despises me, and that saddens me more than you could possibly believe. He says, after all, what father doesn't want to be loved by his son? And he has a goofy grin on his face.
Oh, he's so evil.
Yeah, and they have him talking while they're showing the fight outside, and he says, "I know I'm asking you to take a leap of faith." He's like, but Miguel's a brilliant scientist. Where do you think he gets that from? He's like, other than being an administrator, I'm one of the leading researchers of my time. And he says, and I can assure you, what modern science refers to as permanent spinal damage is to me about as permanent as a sprained ankle. The problem is I can't fix it here. I have to take you to my facility. He says, there you could be treated. It's quite efficient. The man who came with me on this trip was treated there not long ago. Believe it or not, the damage he sustained was far worse than yours, and we were able to fix him right up. Now he's up and around, bigger and stronger than ever. A real success story. He's like, it's that kind of success that just fills me with pride. And she says, what's it going to cost me? And he says, I'll absorb any cost. She says, that's not what I mean. She says, you're the one responsible for Miguel winding up here. And she says, if I go off with you, if I let you help me, how is that going to make him feel? And Tyler says, I should point out that you should be grateful to me. If it weren't for my actions, you'd never have met him. Hell, you'd probably be dead by now. He cured you of a fatal disease, did he not? And he says, Tempest, he loves you, doesn't he? And she says, yes. And he says, and he wants the best for you. And I'll admit I'm being selfish. I figure if I help you, perhaps he'll think more positively about me. That's the hope. He's like, but he'll never trust me to do right by you, even if it means you can never run with your child. So the question is, will you trust me? He says, if not, tell me to leave and you'll never see me again. She says, go. He kisses her hand and he starts walking away. And she says, wait. If you're lying, I'll kill you. And he says, I accept your terms. And Miguel's still fighting Man Mountain Marco. And he's like, what have they done to him? He's like, it's like punching Iron Man. And Marco says, I almost died during the treatment. They had to shock my heart, bring me back twice. You know what kept me going? This moment right here, when I knew I'd be able to kill you. And he says, so pull all the tricks you want, thinking to save you. And that's when Miguel uses some webbing and catapults himself back and hits Marco. And then he drops, as he says, all the bombs in his suit and makes a giant hole and just traps Marco in the hole. And he says, Marco's a distraction. I have to get the Tempest because if he's here, Tyler probably brought him. And that's when Miguel sees a helicopter taking off. And he's like, no, Tempest. And Marco's free. He tackles Miguel and knocks him out. And he's like, now I'm gonna. And that's when Tyler says, Marco, come aboard. Marco's like, no, I've been waiting for this. Tyler says, I don't care if you're waiting for Godot. Get on board. Leave him. He says, he tells him, Marco, leave him or I'll end you without hesitation. And it looks like he's holding a button. So I don't know if he pulled like an Amanda Waller and he planted a bomb or something in him because Tyler has a button.
Oh, well, you
Marco.
always want to do that. If you're going to make a superpowered as the Jackal has taught us, if you're going to make a superpowered supervillain and bring him back to life, you want to have a reason for him to always do what you tell him. I mean, it's not hard math.
Oh yeah. But so the issue just ends with them leaving Miguel unconscious on the ground. But this was really good. This is one of the best ones in a while. The big thumbs up, like I said, it's my pick of the week.
Okay, honestly, if I had read it, it sounds like it would have been mine. I mean, an upgraded Marco is pretty cool. Marco is a character.
Butt. You would have loved it.
Oh, I would have. I love Marco. They've made him more and more sociopathic over the years. Because like what I wrote a little thing for him once, a little fanfic a while ago with Marco, which was actually sort of just playing him off as the sad sack henchman. That he used to be super tough, but that everyone else got tougher, and he just sort of stayed the same, and he could never keep up. But now he's got he's Power Man level, man. So we'll see where Marco goes next. Really excited for him. Good to see. Good. Okay. Let's go to the Unstoppable Wasp. There's so much I hate about this book. This is the book I love and I hate at the same time. And it's not a love-hate relationship. Well, no, it's not a love to hate it. It's a love-hate relationship where it's like, oh, these are really cool ideas and really cool things, and there are things that make you go, oh, why can't you just not be stupid?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: I can headcanon it, and I headcanoned it all, because we have this whole thing where she's constantly speaking English, which, and they're doing this whole thing, and I'm not even sure if they're actually following proper grammatical protocols for Russian accents. There's a thing about in Russian, they're not definite and indefinite articles. So like, how Starfire, when she talks, she always say the this or this, and when you should say the a, she says the. And in Russian, there is no a or the. It's all just one thing. So that's why they will say, I'm looking for the redhead, when they want to say I'm looking for a redhead. And that differentiation is a key to Russian translation. But here they just have her basically, talking at things and, being a genius who's a little stupid. Because, of course, she encounters a landline and doesn't know how to utilize it. Which is like weird to me. Because, sure, she may have never actually held a landline. But not for nothing. She grew up in the Soviet Union. She's seen a landline.
Yeah.
They have old technology laying around there because we have old technology laying around here. I go to work every day with a landline. It's not like there's a cell phone at my reception desk, It is a landline, and so that's a little weird. But anyway, we also find out that Hank Pym has apparently a answering machine that just talks, so that it's an answering machine, because just like on Jessica Jones when they had to like sort of say, oh, she just keeps this old answering machine around for reasons, they don't even give you reasons here. Jarvis is at the door, and they play Nadia very much as a manic pixie dream girl, which is fine, in its own way. They show that she's very smart but doesn't think things through. She's very much a nutty professor, which is fine. It's like this. There's nothing horrible. There's nothing in and of itself awful about it. It's just a little cliched. But then again, like I say, the character brings me back. I love Nadia. I love the way she keeps me around. Even though every time I'm reading, I'm like, come on, you can do better. You can make this have a little more depth and complexity. Anyway, she goes and meets a girl in Washington Heights who is a super awesome engineer who has also got leg issues because she's walking around with crutches and is later in a wheelchair. She builds cool, awesome robots, although, of course, the robots are made out of scrap metal, so they're not that strong. If she could get some vibranium or adamantium, man, she'd be kicking some butt with her robot army. Nadia gives her the basic pitch, saying about how she's out recruiting all the best female scientists because all the boys club scientists never gave girls a chance, which, is somewhat true, with the exception of my favorite female scientist, Fiona Fitzhugh, who is the Reed Richards scholar at Empire State University. And so clearly Reed Richards recognized that, yes, genius comes in all forms. So thank you, Reed Richards. Where are you now when we need you? She points out that because she's using Moon Girl in her recruiting materials, and they say, well, she's on the team too, right? And she's like, oh, no, I forgot to even ask her. And Jarvis basically says, well, maybe you didn't ask her because she's 9. And a girl that age should be with toys and roller skates and yada, yada, yada. and shouldn't you want to, shouldn't you be out there kissing, wanting, and she's like, oh, and what, I'm supposed to be out kissing a boy behind the bleachers, whatever that means. And, Jarvis basically says, well, don't you want to go to dances? Don't you want to have a child? Don't you want to have a young person's life, And she's like, ooh, I don't want to kiss anybody. And it's not cooties. It just says, you know what? I'll let you know when I start being more interested in kissing someone than quantum physics, okay? Which maybe they're going to play her as being somewhat asexual, which is fine, We'll see how they play that out as it goes out. That's the new hip orientation, being asexual. It's fine by me, no problem there. Anyway, they come across a giant rat, and both Moon Girl and Nadia, because they do go to recruit Moon Girl. Nadia points out, says, "Hey, she's wearing roller skates and has toys. Aren't you satisfied?" They have to fight the giant rat. They do, in fact, fight the giant rat. Nadia gets somewhat eaten and then gets sneezed out when Moon Girl shoots a sneezing powder missile at him because, sure, that was the one thing in her backpack was a sneezing powder missile for just such an emergency. That causes her to be sneezed out, but of course she finds the special control device inside the rat, which honestly, I'm not even gonna. I just noticed this completely nonsensical continuity aspect of it. We'll deal with that later. Basically, she says, "I know this device. This was developed by me and Ying, who was her old lab partner, and that's why the rat was there. We developed this thing that can make any animal super giant and aggressive." And she runs and she finds Ying. She says, "I'm sorry they sent me. I know it will make this more difficult for you." And the next issue, Devil Dinosaur, aka Moon Girl, and Nadia fight giant gamma rats. Thumbs up. I still love this book. I really do love this book. It is a fun book. I'm gonna get to. It's gonna get to 3. She is such a force of nature, Nadia, that as much as I get annoyed by certain aspects of the book, I say, you know what? This is such a great character. I still want to see what she's doing. I'm not turned off by her yet. So, I mean, to that extent, I don't know if that's the writer creating this character, because I still don't like what the writer is doing story-wise, but I'm loving the character. So, that's where I am. Thumbs up.
All right, then I will jump to Moon Knight number 11. It begins in Illinois. It says some time ago. Mark Spector's in the I don't know if you say the hospital he was in. Remember his father checked him in, but he's packing.
This is him when he was a kid.
What?
This is him when he was a kid.
Yeah, it looks like he's a little older. He's got to be at least a teenager. But yeah, they're saying the orderlies come in and they say, "That's all you packed. You're sitting Shiva. You'll need enough clothes for 7 days." Because they drive him home and because he's going to his father's funeral. Yeah. And then later at the apartment, his mom's saying, "Your father would be glad you made it home." And he says, "I doubt it." He's like, "Dad was embarrassed by me. He was happy to send me away." And his mother says, "Your father loved you. He just wanted you to get better." And then he's just like staring off. And she's like, Mark. And he's like, "Mark isn't here anymore, Mrs. Spector. It's Jake now. Mark is too upset to handle what comes next." And she's like, "Mark, stop this. Not here, for God's sake. Not now of all times." And he's like, "You're right. I got to go to the bathroom." But he goes to his old room, opens the window, and climbs out and just runs away. You just hear a voice saying, "Yes, my son, come, come." Meanwhile, in the present, Mark's in the overvoid, and he's fighting what looks like Egyptians riding giant insects.
As you do.
Yeah, and he's about to joust. He gets on one insect, and he's about to joust the guy on another insect. And he says, "Crawley, you better be worth this." But he gets knocked off and captured. And And then another flashback, you hear the voice saying again, Mark, Mark, can you hear me? And then this is, I guess, a couple years after the last flashback in Iraq, because he's with the Marines. Two other Marines find him, and they're like, what are you doing out here? And it looks like he's naked. He says, I was just going for a walk. And they're like, a walk in a minefield? And so I guess they bring him to a major, and the major's telling him, Private Mark Spector, you joined the Marines 3 years ago. This is your second tour in Iraq, mostly peacekeeping, but you did see some action in Fallujah last fall. He says, you've seen a lot of things, but none of it explains your recent behavior. And Mark says, I apologize, it won't happen again. And the major's like, well, if this was the first time, I might take your word for it, but your file is full of bizarre behavior. He says, my men did some digging. I know who you really are. And Mark says, you do? And then he sees the major as Khonshu, and Khonshu says, you are the one who would do anything to be cured. You are the one who will give his soul to me. And he's like, no. And then he sees the major again, and the major says, calm down. I know you're a patient at the Putnam Mental Health Hospital in Illinois. I know you lied to your recruiters. He's like, I'm sorry, you're being dishonorably discharged. You are unfit for duty. I'm sending you back to Baghdad. There you'll be put on the first plane back to the States. I'm sorry, Spector. The Marines is no place for a man like you. Meanwhile, they show him once he gets to the airport, he just jumps off the truck and runs away again. A lot of running away. Seems like a theme here.
Got his Section 8.
Mm-hmm. But back in the present, the Egyptian-looking guards lock him up, and then he sees another figure in another cell, and he calls her Anput, and she says, oh, you know that name, and it's one of many I've had. She's like, who are you, stranger? Do you come from Earth? And he says, yes, I think your husband sent me to find you. And she says, Anubis sent you? He says, yes, more of a trade, actually. He has a friend of mine. And he says, you're a goddess. How can they hold you? Who are these people? What is this place? And she says, this is the Overvoid. Here I am no goddess, only another slave. And that's when the guards are like, quiet, do not talk to him. And the guards come in and take him, and Mark's like, what is this? What are you doing? And they say, you will be a sacrifice and an example. Any who defy us will meet the same fate. And then the issue ends with the final flashback. It doesn't say where he's at, but looks like basically a fight club. He's in a circle of guys fighting another guy. Very, very Jason Bourne from the last movie.
Yes.
Yeah, but he knocks the guy down, and everyone's screaming, kill him, and he says, say it, and the guy says, enough. And they're like, bye, you should have killed him. And then after the fight, he's sitting there, and a figure comes up and says, that was quite a fight. I was impressed. Fact is, I could use a man with your talents. He says, I think you and I can make a lot of money together, Mark Spector. And he says, you know my name? He says, I've been keeping an eye on you. You go by a few names, Mark Spector, Jake Lockley, Stephen Grant. Says, suppose it's only fair that you know my name too, huh, Mon ami? He says, I am Jean Paul, but you can call me Frenchie. Everyone else in this place does. Mark Spector, I think you and I are going to become very good friends. To be continued.
Frenchie!
Yep.
I love Frenchie.
But, yeah, this was another good one. This was probably another contender for Pick of the Week.
Yeah, well, here's what I'll say. As much as I'm going to complain about Marvel a lot going forward, they're still putting out good stories. To that end, let's talk about Slapstick number 3. This was the one that really drove me nuts.
Uh-oh.
And I'm talking about the new policy where we no longer get our free digital books.
Mm-hmm.
We used to buy a book, we'd get a digital copy because we paid freaking good money for a freaking book. And now, instead of getting that, we're going to get some random old books for no good reason, digitally. Which is, first off, they're assuming they assume we don't already own those books. Which, honestly, I actually think I owned all 3 this month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I've read all of them, so it's like, okay. But what's most frustrating about this book in particular is one of the reasons I loved Slapstick was the way that when you're reading it digitally, how they animated the transitions. And those animated transitions made everything so much cooler. It was so much more energetic while you were reading it. And I loved that, and that's not what we're getting here. Now, all that said, as mad as I am about the policy, this was still a good book, even without the transitions. I don't think, and here's what I'm going to tell you, I don't think, had I read this book, had I read like the other books, non-digitally, I don't think I would have read another one. I think I would have just tossed it to the side. This is the first book where I think the story was strong enough that without the animated transitions, it works. So I don't know if Marvel is that tight on its scheduling where they said, "Hey, this is the book where you can't rely on that, so you make sure that this is a solid book without it." You know, I'm not sure if that's how it worked, but either way, it was good. Marvel, here's what you do: I'll pay the $3.99. I'll give you an extra $1. You give me the digital book. Just don't make me pay another $2.99 to have this book digitally when I just bought it for $3.99. You know? Mm-hmm. We'll get to more of this later in Super Connectivity. Anyway, so we open up. We have Steve Harmon, a.k.a. Slapstick's friend. I believe his name is Mike. At the art supply store, he's talking about how as soon as he finishes his graphic novel about Steve, they're going to go to a Comic-Con and really get the attention, and the publishers will be demanding everything from them, and then the cool winter hat in the middle of the summer girl who works at the art store with him says, "Yeah, that's the." The 4 pages you keep on redrawing. Yes, I've seen them. And he does make this point later that yes, he just keeps on redrawing the same 4 pages over and over again. When all of a sudden he is attacked by a Tsar, a Tsaur, and the Tsars are basically a cross between My Little Ponies and Smurfs. All the Tsars are male. They all have identifying characteristics. Which within their name. So, for example, after Mike is hit by a tiny spear in the bum, he goes out, he grasps them, and he says, "Brothers, imposter syndrome Tsar knew he had no business attacking humans on his own. Save him!" And then all of the other guys show up, and we get to our big title page, Slapstick in Friendship is Murder. And then, Slapstick is going around murderizing everybody. They poke him in his eyes, they knock him down. He's the whole time talking to the folks back home, the agents of armor, because he wants to get his pardon once he defeats the electroplasmic bad guys. Yeah, and they're saying, take care of this first, and then we'll talk about it. And he pulls out Broman's sword and starts chopping them off, but they keep on attacking him. The mall collapses on top of him. As he's digging himself out of the rubble, he sees Mike and his friend. They've got like makeshift art supply armor that they've been fighting the Tsars off with. And of course, Slapstick captures Saurette, who is the only girl among the Tsars, and if she helps her escape to his universe, she will give them information to defeat the Tsars, because she is tired of their constant Tsar-splaining to Saurette and subjecting her to male gaze. Saurette requires political asylum in the Champions dimension. They all agree. She tells them about Gorgonzola, the sorcerer supreme of the dimension, who seeks to capture all the Tsars because they excrete the gold medal that he wishes so much. They have Mike dress up as Gorgonzola, gives the whole speech, shoots fireworks out of his fingers. All of the Tsars each drop a plop of solid gold, which sends Slapstick into money hunger. He goes, ah, yeah. Oh, mama, daddy like, and accidentally drops Mike. He realizes, he puts Saurette into his bag of holding, which is a horrible, horrible place to be, as you might imagine. It basically shoves her into his pants, and she says, Charlotte can't take being rescued one more time. She'll rescue herself. She grabs a Swiss Army knife she finds and cuts herself out of his pants of holding. And all of his stuff is all over everywhere, but he finds the electroplasm gun that Quasimodo hit him with a couple issues back. And he basically turns all the SARS into crazy blobs of monster ink. And he has them captured. And, of course, they tell him, thank you for capturing them. We'll give you that immunity, but don't you mess around with that contacting Dimension X anymore. Because if you do, that violates the terms of our agreement. A few weeks later, Mike is back. He's redrawn the first 4 pages, and Slapstick has used the gold he stole from the SARS to rebuild Quasimodo's original device, except it's a little different this time. Instead of being a portal to Dimension X, it shoots ray beams that turns everything into a cartoon, including his coffee cup, who says, "What up? B-words," and the lamp, which says, "Ain't no party like a furniture party," and the sofa, which doesn't say anything but starts dancing. Next issue, Slapstick versus the War Dogs, which is a great little riff on the GI Joe, but with all dogs. So, big thumbs up for Slapstick. Again, a book I was not ready to be falling in love with, but then I fell in love with again. Marvel, you're so good, you write so well. But I'm still mad at you. So we're going to talk about this more, Marvel, on Super Connectivity this week. You're not off the hook. DC's looking real sexy over there right now with their free books for $3.99. So,
with their tight little digital codes.
Oh yeah, man. I'm telling you, Marvel, you better keep it up. I mean, yeah, we got history, Marvel, but ain't no ring on this finger. That's all I'm saying, Marvel. Don't get cocky.
Taking us for granted, Marvel.
Exactly. What's your next?
Right.
This is your last book, right?
Yes, my last book on my own, Deadpool number 26, and yes, I know everyone, Deadpool 25 was out last week.
Yeah, well, see, they're taking us for granted. We taking us for granted. Of course, it's not like DC doesn't put out 2 books a week. Well, not once a week, but they are at 2 months now for a lot of their books too. So,
well, I don't know if they wanted to time this because it's the Valentine's Day issue.
Okay.
But so
what
it
happens
opens
on
up.
Valentine's Day to Deadpool?
Well, it opens up with Wade going back to the theater that's still kind of bombed out because he's thinking he has money troubles, girl troubles. Now it's Valentine's Day. At least my public is still adoring, even if they're not buying my crap anymore. But he finds looks like a heart-shaped box of chocolates, but in with the chocolates is a human heart, Charlie. And
just like My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah, but it's from Madcap.
Still out there.
So then later, Deadpool's taking a horseless carriage ride with Shikla, and he's explaining the Valentine's Day to her, and she's like, "Why should emotions receive their own festivals?" She's like, "Is there a holiday dedicated to the people you hate?" And he says, "It's called Thanksgiving, Shikla."
There you go.
And then while he's talking to the driver, Shikla sees he brought the heart with him, but Shikla's like, "What's this?" And she opens it, and she's like, "This is so sweet of you, a blood sacrifice on Valentine's Day for your beloved." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, this is for someone else," because I guess pulling up to the same restaurant is Agent Preston and her husband, and he shows her the heart. And he says, "This is from Madcap," and she's like, "Okay, we'll take it to the office and put a rush on the DNA." and see if it comes up in Shield system. So Deadpool and Shikla go into the restaurant. He's telling her he's gonna have to leave soon, and she's talking about having to make big decisions every day. We suffer more and more encroachment from the humans above us. How more do we need to suffer? And then the waiter comes and asks if they want something to drink, and she puts a knife in Deadpool's neck, so I don't know if she's going to drink his blood.
Yeah. She's from a different time, man.
But they're talking, and he says, I didn't ask for you to happen, or Preston, or Ellie. Life just happens to me, and here we are. I'm not in control of anything. You are. You take control. He says, you want to throw me completely overboard? Be my guest. What do you want to do with me? And flash to them in bed. Then Deadpool
he
gets
offered.
the call. Yeah, I know. Then Deadpool gets the call about the DNA, so he takes off. And Preston tells him that she talked to an NYPD detective. They caught a case. An Eastern European torpedo named Chris Kipiniak is dead. His heart's missing. And she said the cops thought it was gang business, and the heart was a message for someone. She says, I just sent you the Brighton Beach address for the boss. It's not exactly something S.H.I.E.L.D. or the NYPD can just barge into. And Deadpool's like, that's why we make a good team. I'll check in. And she says, are we a team? She says, are you, or after being locked in your head, do I have Stockholm Syndrome? And he tells her, I don't know what you're worried about. Madcap was stuck in my head too, and he turned out fine. I'm blameless for all of this. But meanwhile, he's thinking, this is all my fault. Life put a clown in my head, so I ground him up and made clown aid. He was an uninvited guest. I didn't make it easy on him. So taking the blame again.
Well,
he's
the one person truly aware, so. Except for Gwenpool. I'm still waiting for that teacup, man.
Yeah. So he goes to a restaurant, I guess, where the mob, this mob gang's hanging out. He pulls a guy through a window, and he says, "Oh, this guy looks important." And then the bodyguard one of the bodyguard comes up, and he's like, I'm not gonna hurt you. He's like, but I'm gonna keep wailing on this important looking guy. He's like, when he gets out of intensive care, he's gonna blame you for every bone I break. Then I guess the boss comes up. He said, that's enough. He's like, please stop kicking our waiter. And Deadpool says, do you mind tipping him extra for me? And he's asking about the dead guy, and the boss says he was a good soldier. Our rivals sent all their condolences. We're drinking and remembering him. Tomorrow we find out who did this. He says his brother is also missing. He was not one of us. He is a painter named Adam. And Deadpool says, the brother's missing. Where do I start? And he's still holding the bodyguard, and the boss says, take Ivan with you. He will show you the flat they shared. He's like, and don't ever return here. And so the bodyguard takes him, I guess, to the apartment the dead guy and his brother shared. Deadpool kicks down the door, goes, topless maids, hello. And he's checking the apartment, and the bodyguard, he's like, we checked here, and Deadpool says, but not carefully enough. He says, now you run home. The bodyguard has like this beard. He says, you run home now, you gamma bombed Abe Lincoln looking mother bleeper. So he cuts through one of the walls, and there it looks like Madcap in his old costume. And he says, why'd you mess with these brothers? And Madcap says, I was bored. They were within reach. He's like, how are the kids? And Deadpool says, way more alive than you're going to be. And Deadpool brings his sword out, and he stops like right before Madcap's throat. And he says, you're less stabby. And Deadpool says, this isn't right. He rips the mask off Madcap, and it's not Madcap, it's Adam. His mouth taped up. Yep, he's got a speaker like around his neck. And Madcap says, he's like, look what he's like what I've done with my face. And Adam's like, thank God, a lunatic kidnapped me and strapped me to this chair, and put the costume on. And he says, cut me loose. And Deadpool says, I better let the bomb squad do that. And he says, "Where are you?" And he sees a camera in a teddy bear. He says, "Hello, Madcap." He says, "I've cooked up a permanent way to stop you." He says, "Sorry I didn't blunder into your trap. Enjoy what little time you have left." And they show Madcap. He's still looking kind of scrawny, but he's grown his body back.
Mm-hmm.
And after I guess Deadpool, crushes the camera or whatever, Madcap's like, he doesn't know how to kill me, right? Oh, and then at the end, they show who Agent Preston and her husband got to babysit the kids.
And who is that?
And why, it's Uncle Phil Coulson.
Oh, good old Uncle Phil.
Because Preston and her husband come home, and Coulson says, "I thought having a level 7 S.H.I.E.L.D. agent in the house would make you guys feel better about leaving the kids alone for the first time since Madcap's attack." And the issue ends with him saying, "I know you both know this, but there's not going to be a good ending to any of this, to Madcap and Deadpool." And Preston says, "We know," and the husband says, "Emily and I, we've already been talking about some radical solutions." The end.
Dum dum dum.
Oh, but next issue looks really good, Charlie. The cover, it's Deadpool has his arms and legs wrapped around Hydra Cap.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I wonder what he, oh man.
What does he know?
Fourth wall breaking character. What does he know? It's like our Gwenpool. Does she know?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Oh, when she meets She-Hulk, what'll be interesting is if she comes into a Hulk book with She-Hulk, and she's like, "No, come on, you see, you talk, you break the fourth wall all the time," and she's like, "What are you talking about?" Oh, although even in that, you could even have a wonderful thing where they almost do a replay of the what was it? Squirrel Girl and Penance thing, where I think it was Squirrel Girl, no, it might have been someone else from Damage Control, where they recognized that it was Billy Baldwin and sort of like help him to overcome his, intense pain. But yeah, we'll have to see what they do. But yes, the eventual Gwenpool. Of course, she met Howard the Duck too, and Howard the Duck has that fourth wall breaking stuff abilities too, but makes the point. It's real to us, Anyway, so let us go on to the book we both read of the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the Avengers.
This was good
number 4. This was very good. I mean, it's. Are you ready? Are you ready for the secret origin of Kang? Yes, I know it's not that secret. We know most of it, but here's a couple extra details we've added in this week. Please stay tuned. What do you think?
I liked it. It took all the Rama Tut stuff and stuff we already knew, and kind of, like you said, gave us more details and kind of gave us like a, I don't know if I want to say chronological order, but it kind of like,
Yeah, well, it gave us it filled in some blanks. There are things that are made known to us over the years. This is our first introduction to our generals of Kang. I am very surprised to see none are humans. Was that surprising to you at all? Or
wait, he wasn't human?
None of his generals. We see his 5 generals who rule apparently his 5 galactic empires. 2 ladies and 3 dudes. Well, let me correct. Well, okay, we're assuming 3 dudes. And we're assuming 2 ladies. There are 2 that look typically feminine. There are 2 at least that look typically masculine, and 1 who looks typically robotish. So, so let's work from there. So it might be a nice split between the 3.
Well, maybe I was gonna say maybe they aren't human because maybe that keeps keeps some alien races off him, because if all his generals were human, then you might have attack from different alien races.
That's an interesting point. Although, probably what it is whatever the alien race that dominates in each time period.
Yes.
gets to be his general. You know, I mean, that's the thing, is you conquer, and then you take the greatest general among them, and you say, if you will join with me, then we're all cool, and you can rule your empire however you like, and just, you know, kick up your, you know, give us a piece of the action, as Captain Kirk would say. Still my favorite episode, A Piece of the Action. Anyway, so and they never went back to those guys. I would have loved to have seen what those guys looked like in the Next Generation, you know, just with Tommy gun lasers and all that kind of stuff. They would have been awesome. Looking for a piece of their own action. Okay, so we come back to little Nathaniel Richards, all grown up, sad because he lives in a time full of sheeple. To quote Patton Oswalt. You know, it is one of these interesting points in this where you kind of wonder, you know, was he really living in a time of sheeple, or was he just a cross of Doom and Richards' DNA that was so full of its own hubris that it just had to say, "I'm more brilliant than all you."
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to think, you know, yeah, it's from his point of view, so it's like, you know, were they really sheeple, or were they just people who weren't willing to conquer other people?
Yeah, maybe they're just people like, dude, we've
maybe
got
there's world peace, and he's like, they're all sheeple. They believe in peace.
Yeah, exactly. Not for nothing. And again, you know what I'm going to tell you right now, Phil. We're going to find out there's some Parker DNA in this. There's some Parker, because it's all this. Oh man, no, I gotta be the star of a show. I gotta go be in this adventure.
That's all Richard. That's all Richards and Doom DNA.
It's like the worst of Richards, Doom, and then you watch. You're gonna find that somewhere along the line, either Anna or Mayday came in. You know, honestly, you're gonna find out like the one tempering force is the Whitman DNA from Bentley 23. Anyway, they go into. He gives his basic origin. He went back in time, decided to be Ramatut, built his first army. Because he had super science, which looked like magic. Used that to create his first army. And this is what I think is great. He goes back to his own time. And he says, but time was different, and which makes you wonder if maybe he just had altered the time stream so much that his original future didn't really exist, wasn't accessible to him anymore. Maybe he didn't understand things as well as he thought. And where he winds up with, basically, he gets his butt handed to him. But then he hears of the great emperor's secret stash, and he goes to find the great emperor, and he finds it. And of course, who's the great emperor, Phil?
Oh wait, isn't he the emperor?
Yeah,
Ramatut. Yeah,
Ramatut. It's him, and he takes the death mask from himself. So this explains the transition from the Scarlet Centurion to Kang. Is Kang wears the death mask of Ramatut.
Mm-hmm.
And this gives us our first introduction to the fact that there are these multiple timelines. That, you know, because there was a timeline where Kang, as Ramatut, just continued on forever as the Emperor of Time.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the universe where Kang got bored with ruling ancient Egypt and went back to the future.
Back to the future.
Back to the future, you know. And this is the thing, as we say, that the time, you know, everywhere Kang goes, he is the storm of time. Mm-hmm. That paradoxes just follow him everywhere. And of course, here he is ready because he hears them coming. We don't know who they are coming for him. We can assume it's the Avengers, but we might be assuming too much. Because he sees that all of time is disappearing, all of his history is disappearing, the weapons he has are fading.
Well, you know what I was thinking?
Mm-hmm.
If they're real, that Avengers team they showed, it looked like the team, this present team, and it looked like there was like past members in there. So unless he's
Yes.
like hallucinating or something, didn't Sam Wilson have a plan? Maybe that's the plan. Maybe they like time traveled and they got like multiple Avengers teams from different points in time that would all attack Kang, and they attacked him at different points in time.
That's a possibility. And for what it's worth, we've got two different Thors.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we've got Thor in the armor when his bones were breaking, and Thor classic, old-fashioned
Mm-hmm.
Thor, along with new modern Lady Thor. We've got Hercules with big guns. Of course, we've got our current. Then we've got She-Hulk before she went all moody, and old school three-toe Hulk, and Giant Man and Ms. Marvel, or sorry, Captain Marvel. Sadly, no future Avengers here. It's all past Avengers. I guess that makes its own sense. Now, here's a weird question for you, Phil.
Hmm.
And I wonder what we're going to see here. He's got a Captain America here.
Mm-hmm.
A Steve Cap, right?
Yes.
Is that Hydra Cap? Or is that proper Cap?
The uniform looks like like regular Steve Rogers, not Hydra Cap.
Well, yes, but the thing is, here's what's to me is about this, because of course, Kobik theoretically changed the actual history of the universe.
But did she actually change history, or did she just change his memories?
That's the $85 billion question.
Because it's going to answer that. His interactions with Zemo. If Zemo says, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about," then we'll know it's just his memories.
Well, unless she changed Zemo's memories too. But as I've said, the timeline doesn't make any sense for Helmut Zemo to have been alive in the 1940s.
That's why I'm thinking she just changed his memories.
Yeah. It is crazy. It is weird. It's exciting. We got Black Knight back. This is going to be an interesting thing that happens. And we see that for the first time in recorded history, Kang is afraid. And we see this interesting bit of Vision versus Vision in the next issue. The nice painted thing. And again, I love the artwork in this too. We always talk about story, but the artwork is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how people draw things, but they draw good. These people know how to draw. They good drawers. I like the drawers they did. Yeah, but no, big thumbs up for Avengers #4, I think. Do you have anything else you want to talk about it, Phil? Anything that really jumped out at you that said, "Oh, this was great," and Charlie didn't even mention it?
But no, but just what I was saying before. I think Sam's plan was Kang's always been able to time travel and mess with them, so I think Sam was like, "Hey, why don't we pull his own tricks on him and time travel and hit him at different points in the timeline."
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Use time to fight the time traveler.
Yeah, well, because nothing fights fire like fire, which never actually ever made any sense. Because that just makes more fire.
Yes.
You fight fire with fire, you just make more fire. You actually aren't fighting the fire at all. Okay. So, yeah. So that's that.
Yes. All right. So, ready to get out of here?
Yeah. Well, I may have a light week again next week. How's your week next week looking, Phil?
Like I said, I think I only have 5 books next week.
Oh, only 5.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and I'm trying to remember. We probably have at least some in common. So yeah, I mean, I had 7 total this week. The next week I have 5.
Oh yeah. I mean, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at like 3 and maybe up to 5. So yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have a smaller show. a shorter episode.
Maybe people will finally get to listen to us in one subway ride instead of having to listen to the rest of the way. Okay, Phil.
All right.
Let's do some social needs, some sock needs.
If you want to send in any reviews or any thoughts on any of these books or anything we don't read, email us, marvelroundup@gmail.com. Facebook is facebook.com/allnewmarvelroundup. Our Twitter is @Marvel_Roundup. And even on Instagram, we are Marvel Roundup. And Charlie, where can people find you?
Well, you can always find me in that old-fashioned email way at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And hey, a quick note out to all you friends. I'm talking to you, Kenneth Smyson. If you've ever wanted to get into the fast-paced, fun world of podcasting but need an in, I'm looking for a co-host for Powerless, that new DC show over there on NBC. So please write in and say, hey, Charlie, can I do that with you? And I'll say, absolutely. Let's do the pilot right now. And of course, if you'd like to follow me as I live tweet Powerless, as well as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Incredible Hulk, 7 o'clock on Saturdays, Legends of Tomorrow, and all sorts of other things, do so at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality.
All right. Well, before I get to my social media, don't bother to leave a message for Kenneth Smyson here, because when I was on Enough Said last night with him and Rob, Kenneth said he doesn't listen to the All New Marvel Roundup.
Oh my goodness!
Just super shocked. Connectivity. He listens to all the Charlie Esser shows except for this one. I mean, come on.
So sad.
Kenneth. Anyway. Oh yeah, because Rob was telling us that you and Maz are going to be doing Jessica Jones next, now that you did all of season 1 of Luke Cage.
Yes, we are. And we are going to do season 2 of Daredevil after that.
But yeah, I was all excited to hear that. I'm like, I love those jive turkeys. I want to hear more.
Yeah, we're still working on our intro for the Jessica Jones. So we're still saying jive turkeys. So
it's like whatever. It's like whatever. This is Jessica Jones. Whatever. Like her attitude. Whatever.
No, well, what we're doing right now is we say, hey, jive turkeys, welcome to the Cage Cast. Actually, it's the AKA Jones Cast.
Oh.
But that won't work. Yeah. But we won't be able to do that when we get to Daredevil, because there's no AKA. So we need better intros.
No.
We're gonna. I want to try and do a Patty, a Patricia Walker intro like she does on her radio show, but we haven't established that in the series yet. So I have to wait till that becomes established. I'm going to try and segue into that.
Oh, I thought you meant you were going to be like, it's Charlie, it's Maz, talking about Jessica Jones.
See, that's awesome. Once that song gets introduced.
Should record that and send it to you. All right. Anyway, if you want to get a hold of me, it's nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am @nightwingpdp. And as you heard, Charlie Esser is all over the Enough Said feed, but so am I. Lil Hellfire and I are doing the Wade's World Deadpool podcast. Check that out as we record this. Episode 3 went up already, so check that out. And also check me out on Before the Bat and Legends of DC with Charlie Esser and a bunch of our friends. All right, so that is it. Join us again next week. But before that, stay tuned for Super Connectivity and keep your eyes out for that in the next day or so. Or unless you've already pulled a Kang and you've listened to that before this, you pesky time travelers. But for me and for Charlie, thank you for joining us, and good night.